Well, if we picked up where I last left off, Matt, you think that only in minds do you think that where there's a proposition that there necessarily entails a mind, and I wanted to know why or what kind of line of reasoning you would have to say that that's actually the case.
We have to define what a proposition is first in order to answer the question.
Well, you and I both agree that maybe the law of identity expresses a proposition.
Is a proposition a statement?
Yeah, so a kind of statement.
Then a statement requires a mind because it's cognition, it's formulation, hypothesis, theorizing, whatever.
No, it's what a statement expresses.
So you're talking about a statement versus what it represents.
That's right.
Then what's your question again?
Question is, how is it that propositions necessarily presuppose
minds?
Minds. Well, if we understand a proposition to be a statement about something, statements require minds.
Yeah, we're not talking about the statement. We're talking about what the statement expresses.
The thing that exists doesn't require a mind to describe it in order for it to exist, but a proposition, as I understand it, is a statement that is expressing.
No. We've already said that we're making a distinction between a statement and what the statement expresses. That's the proposition.
So the thing, I just said that you don't need a statement to recognize that something exists or not recognize that something exists.
Right. So the proposition is what the statement expresses. So you seem to be saying that a proposition, which is what a statement expresses, requires a mind?
If there's an expression of a mind and a proposition, let's work with a proposition. Why don't you guys give me one?
Yeah, 2 + 2 = 4.
Okay. So that's 2 + 2 is 4. That's a statement, right?
There's a statement and there's a proposition that's expressed by the statement.
What's the proposition expressed by the statement?
2 + 2 = 4.
Okay, that's the statement.
So we don't have a way of expressing propositions outside of language, right?
Well, but
the
you're
idea
talking about
then,
propositions using language, and I'm thinking that you're...
I'll explain it to you, right? So if I say it's raining outside...
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you're robotic. Jack, sorry.
How is it now?
Better.
Okay.
No, roboting again.
Perfect.
Yeah, give me a second, I'll read.
Okay. To understand what he's saying, Matt, is
I'm
that
not
propositions
sure.
exist.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying that propositions exist without a mind. But we can only express the proposition with language through a statement.
How is it?
So let me get this straight. See if I understand what he's saying. He's saying that a proposition is not, by definition, a statement. A proposition is a fact of existence.
Okay, so the idea is, can you hear me better now?
Yes. Way better.
The idea is that if I say it's raining outside in English, right, and somebody else says es regnet in German, and somebody else says il pleut in French, right, all those different sentences express the same proposition, which in English, right, we express by saying it's raining outside.
No,
So the question is, what is it that makes it the case that the proposition, right, which is what's in common, that's expressed by all three of those different sentences, presupposes a mind?
Define proposition in that context.
The proposition is the meaning that's in common in all those, that's commonly expressed by all those sentences.
Is the meaning commonly expressed by sentences?
By all those sentences.
Yeah, all those, 1, 2, 3, doesn't make any difference. So you're saying proposition is the meaning commonly expressed by sentences. So then you're saying, let me get this straight, a proposition is not, by definition, that is not a sentence.
Right.
It's distinct from a sentence. Yeah, it's what a sentence
Okay, well
expresses.
then no propositions require minds. If you're saying they're not a sentence, it's just whatever. You haven't really defined the ontological nature of what it is. You just
No, we're not making any claims about the nature,
said,
right?
okay, well, hold on.
The question on the table is, why is it the case that if we posit that there are propositions, that they would have to be minds? You couldn't have propositions without minds.
I'm still not comprehending what you mean by proposition. And
He explained it like 10
So
times.
like
already.
I'll tell you what, guys. I'll tell you what. If you want to insult, that's fine. I'll take off. I'm looking up proposition on dictionaries, and what it's telling me is not what he's saying. He gives me something. I try and analyze it, and he seems to ignore my analysis. I'm trying to find a deeper understanding of what he means by proposition. And if I'm not allowed to do that, you guys don't want me to do that, okay, just say don't do it, and we'll talk about something else. But how I operate is to really try and understand what someone is saying. I'm not trying to be pedantic. I'm not trying to be obtuse. I don't
Matt,
understand
the
what it means.
majority of the
Good
room is
point.
very happy
We
with
understand
you.
that, Matt. Good point. I think we should just let Matt and
Sorry about that.
Strike proceed.
Yeah, I had a phone call. Yeah, the point so I'm not using proposition in the way it's used non-technically, right? I'm using a technical definition that's proprietary to philosophy. So I don't know that a dictionary is going to be that helpful unless it's a dictionary of philosophy.
Okay, philosophy dictionary, define proposition. Okay, let's see. What is a proposition in philosophy? The term proposition has a broad use in contemporary philosophy. It is used to refer to some or all of the following: the primary bearers of truth value,
Yes.
objects of belief, and other propositional attitudes.
Yes.
Well, what I said earlier was I didn't term it this way, but I was saying the same thing, in that you are different, or seem to be differentiating between the object, the thing being discussed, and the sentence about it. And then I said,
wait, we have to distinguish three things, right? So there's the sentence, right, which is a token of expression, right, in, let's say, some physical form, right? So it could be something that's spoken or marks on a page, right? Or it could be sign language, right? Gestures, bodily gestures, right? So that's the sentence, right? Sentences express express propositions, right? So propositions are what is held in common across different languages, right? Where you can translate one sentence from one language into a different sentence in another language, but they both express the same thing. What's held in common there is the proposition, right? Now, we want to distinguish both the sentence and the proposition from what the proposition is about, right? Because if I say it's raining outside, there's a but
You cut out, Jack.
Sorry.
You said there's a proposition.
There's a proposition expressed by that sentence. It's raining outside, but what that sentence is talking about, right, is some state of affairs in the world, right, which is the rain outside my window or whatever, right? So we want to distinguish those three things: the sentence, the proposition, and what the proposition is about.
say those three things again. The what and the proposition.
The sentence, the proposition,
the sentence,
and what the
proposition.
proposition is about.
And what the sentence is about. Wouldn't it be not the proposition is about?
Well, the point is that we can we can say that if I say Jerry has red hair, right? There's a proposition that's expressed by that sentence, right? And that proposition is about somebody named Jerry.
So let me get this straight. So you're saying then, I say we have a red apple, and so the red apple exists. That's a proposition, just the fact that it exists, not the statement about it, but just its existence.
Well, if I say a red apple exists, that sentence expresses a proposition.
Yes, I'm trying to understand what
Right.
the proposition itself is.
Well, it's what's held in common
That doesn't make any
across.
sense to me.
Well, look, if I say il est un
I understand the
pomme
different
rouge.
language things, yeah. But
Yeah,
I mean,
so what's that? You understand that there's something held in common.
they're
Right, that's
observations.
expressed-
Sentences are observations, right?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that
Observation
what's
of what?
held in common, what I'm saying is that what's expressed in common by different translations of the same sentence is the same proposition.
And the proposition has an essence, a nature, an unto us, right?
Well, everything that exists has a nature.
Are the propositions themselves eternal?
Yeah, they're atemporal.
So are they material or not material?
Well, I don't see
Atemporal
how
means
they could be
abstract.
material.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't see how they could be material. Right?
So you're talking Platonism, Platonic forms?
Well, that's one ontological thesis about the nature of propositions, right? I'm simply
So,
saying
an
that.
apple, I'm trying to understand it. An apple sitting there on a table is a proposition, but you said it was not material. The proposition is not material. So then what you're doing, if I understand you correctly, is you're saying that the existence of the apple reflects an eternal proposition, which is not a sentiment, which is not an expression, but an actuality. But if it's not material, because materiality cannot exist forever, there's a logical problem there. It has to be kind of in a Platonic norm of what you're talking about in a proposition sense, which itself to me has other problems. If I understand what the proposition is in that sense, if it's not physical, then what is it? And
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is it's neither physical nor mental.
then
Right.
what is it if it's not one of those things?
Well, it's its own thing, sui
Okay,
generis.
what is it?
Yeah, but
But
the
that
point
doesn't help
is,
me.
well, I don't know how to help you any further, right? The point is that it
Well,
seems
tell me
like
what it is.
Yeah, see, the thing is that there's such things as semantic primitives, right?
Well, hold on. If something exists, it has properties, right?
Yeah, it has properties, so we
Okay,
can
so
we can
properties-
canvass some of the properties.
Okay,
We can say that it's atemporal and it's not material, right? We can say it doesn't engage in causal relations, right? But there isn't really that much more we can
wait a
say.
minute. Wait. How do you know these statements that you're making are even true?
It's not a question of whether it's true or not, right?
Yes, it
We're just
is.
talking about what the nature of the concept is.
But you made statements, true statements about these propositions. You said it's atemporal. It's a truth value. It has either comports with actuality and or logic, or it does not. So you're describing something. You seem to have an understanding of its essence by describing its properties. But just a little bit ago, you said it's not physical, nor is it mental. And I asked you what it is. You said, and I think you avoided that part of the question. And then you go in and describe properties, describing its nature, as though you know what it is. I see an inconsistency there.
I'm not seeing what the inconsistency is, right? We have a concept and we're engaging in conceptual analysis, right, of what we could possibly mean by that concept, right? We don't seem to mean something that's physical, and we don't seem to mean something that's mental, right? So it must be some third thing.
Then what is it?
We can't say much more about it other than that it's a third thing.
Well, that's a Dillahunty Dodge. We have a specific fallacy for that. We call it Dillahunty Dodge. That's from years ago. But well, I have a
There's
problem
no
with that.
fallacy. There's
I have
no
a problem.
fallacy there.
Well, let me explain.
Right.
My problem with it is if you were to ask me some questions about some theological aspect, biblical revelation, whatever, and I'd say it's not this or it's not that, and you say, well, what is it? Well, don't know. Just not those things.
Well,
Well,
look,
then what is it?
you,
And I
affirm,
would
you,
just
affirm, you
on.
affirm the existence of propositions.
Hold on. Come on. I let you go through
Let him speak, man.
let me at least get my point out. I think it's fair.
It is fair.
But if I were to do that to you about revelation issues of Scripture, would you accept it from me to say, "Oh, I can't describe what it is. It's just there, but I don't know what it is," and that's how I have answers for you?
I'm not referring to something that you don't already accept.
Can I interject?
No,
Hey,
no,
can
no.
I
I haven't
say one
accepted.
thing?
Not
Can I say one
accepted
thing
the
really
issue.
quickly?
I have not accepted or denied, affirmed or denied your idea of propositions. I'm only trying to understand it. That's all. I'm not saying I
Can I
don't
say
think I
something,
do.
Matt, really quick?
Sure. Yeah.
So I think the idea is something. The reason to think it's its third own class of things or independent is so like we all seem to think that propositions exist. We come to the table, we think they exist. We all agree propositions exist.
I don't know what the propositions
So-
are yet, though. That's the thing.
So, well, let's just say that all parties agree propositions exist. If Jack Angstreich has given you reasons to think that they're not physical and not mental,
Wait,
but
that's
we agree that
Angstreich
they
I'm talking to?
no, but well,
Yeah.
whoever, yeah. So
Well, that's
let's
a
just say
problem.
that you. Well,
Oh, he found his out. Found it.
actually, I think I might have said the wrong person. Look, I don't know who you're talking to. That guy that you were just talking to. So if you
Okay.
agree that propositions exist, okay, and then
I
you have
can't-
reasons to suspect that they're not mental and not physical, but you agree that they exist, that's good reason to think it must be a third category. That's all that I think he's saying.
I agree that that's contemplatively possible, but I don't know if it's logically proper. You see, the thing is, just because you say you describe what it is, and doesn't mean it has an existence. Now, in Scripture, for example, we know a spirit is not. It's not corporeal. But there are certain properties to it that are recognizable. And so we can describe it, and then what we try and do is relate to what it is by descriptors, its properties. So, I'm not trying to argue with you guys. I'm trying to understand it because, seriously, since I have these kind of discussions, I do not want to make a mistake and argue poorly because of a lack of understanding of the philosophical aspect of what a proposition might be, particularly as it relates to transcendentals. So this is important. Right. So I'm not trying to be difficult, but this is how I am. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I really think these things through. What exactly do you mean? I want to be able to understand it so well that I could describe it to you, and you go, "Oh, that's exactly correct." And that's my idea.
Well, that's fair.
Sure.
Can I briefly interject?
Yes.
Sure.
So with the definition that you gave,
who's you?
You read the definition from the philosophy thing.
Yeah.
The bearers of truth, right? Now, presumably, you believe in truth, right?
Yeah, I believe in truth as I do. Metaphysically different than you,
right.
But yeah.
So what you're doing with propositions is like, what if I asked you, well, what is truth? And then you gave me some analysis, and then I just kept asking. The point is that if you have a notion of truth, then you have a notion of what a proposition is. Because a proposition is the thing which is true.
Yeah, I just, maybe it's just me. I just don't follow that. Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult, and maybe it's just my lack of training and intelligence, but it just doesn't quite make sense to me. So, as I look at this philosophy page, it says, propositions, we shall say, are the shareable objects of the attitudes and primary bearers of truth and falsity, which, if I were in class, I'd raise my hand and say, what does that mean? I mean, because...
Well, let's go over it.
Well, are shareable objects. What is a shareable object?
Right, so that would be something that's non-material, right? Something that we can express. When
like
we
what?
express it through language. So we'll say something like, it's raining outside is a standard example. And so by uttering that statement, I'm sharing a thought that I'm having, and that is either true or false. The proposition which that thought is about, the content of that thought, is what I'm sharing when I'm making the utterance.
Okay, let me see if I can understand you then. So if it's raining outside, how about this one? How about this one? Let's, instead of saying it's raining, let's just say there's a carbon sphere in existence. Because I've used that analogy before describing some other things. So let's just say that the only thing in the universe is this carbon sphere. So it doesn't matter what the diameter is because it's irrelevant. And so there are no minds, there's nothing at all. No minds of description or awareness or anything. Is the carbon sphere a proposition?
Carbon sphere is not a proposition.
What is it?
Whatever.
It's an
What
object.
is the carbon? What is the carbon sphere?
Yeah, is it a shareable object? Once we have two minds, let's say two minds suddenly appear on either side of the object, then does it become a shareable object?
The carbon sphere, I mean, like the carbon sphere might be an object, but that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not it's a proposition.
So the carbon sphere itself is not a shareable object.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is shareable in some sense of the word, like, because if there are people, then you can share the sphere.
No, for what you're saying then, it's either the case that the carbon sphere is a shareable object or it's not the case that it's a shareable object. And
Right,
so it either is or it's not.
When I say shareable, I mean in some possible world, this carbon sphere can be shared.
What do you mean by shared in some possible world?
I mean, it's possible that two people maintain possession of a carbon sphere and both use it to their ends.
So then it would be a sharing of a physical object. But you guys saying that propositions are not physical, so that doesn't seem to fit what we're talking about. So you're
I don't know, because like what you're talking about doesn't make any sense, right? Obviously, carbon spheres are not propositions.
That's what I was trying to conclude from what you guys are saying. It's not a
the
proposition.
carbon sphere exists as a proposition.
Right, it's a statement.
No,
Well, it's a proposition that can be expressed by a statement.
A proposition that can be expressed by a statement. So the carbon sphere is a proposition that can be shared by a statement.
The carbon sphere is an object, and you can have a proposition about the carbon sphere, which is an object, like the carbon sphere exists, and that can be expressed by a statement.
So the carbon sphere has existence, and then a proposition is in between, logically, in between the fact of its existence and a statement about its existence.
No, the proposition is essentially a statement.
That's what I started with, and people are telling me that's not the case.
Right. He was right when he said it's the fact of its existence. The fact of its existence is the proposition. Right.
But the fact isn't its existence determined by propositional awareness or statement awareness? And the answer would be no. An object has existence apart from cognition.
Right.
So then you're saying then that the object, that carbon sphere, where there's no minds aware of its existence, is, but there would be no proposition about it. Is that correct?
No,
there would be no utterance about it, but there is a proposition.
Yeah, regardless of the statement, me stating that the carbon sphere exists is apart from the proposition that the carbon sphere exists.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is not making sense to me. I'm really honestly trying to understand it because I think it's very important. You guys seem to understand it.
So in that world, even if there are no minds, it's true that the carbon sphere exists, right, in that world,
That'd be a non sequitur.
No.
What?
Yeah, with no minds, there are no truths.
So you don't think in a world where only a carbon sphere exists and no mind, and there are no minds, that it's true that only a carbon sphere exists?
Wait,
Matt, what you just said would imply that you don't believe there is such a thing as a mind-independent truth at all.
I'm sorry. You were saying something, and then someone spoke, and I couldn't understand you.
Yeah, so the thought experiment you laid out was one in which the only thing that exists is a carbon sphere, right? That was the thought. That was the possible world that you laid out. You said, "What if it's the case that only a carbon sphere exists?" And he said, that presumes that there is no other minds there, right? Now, it's still true by the thought experiment from your hypothesis that the carbon sphere exists. So
external to that world, right?
No, it's true in the world that the carbon sphere exists.
No, if in this world there are no minds, there can be no true statements. So my statement is an observation about another world,
There can be
hypothetical
no
world.
statements. There can be no statements, but there are still propositions, and that means that in the world, the fact is that there is a sphere there.
So you're saying let me get this straight. A proposition then is simply, without, I'm going to be redundant here, tautologist, whatever. A proposition is that something exists, but without a statement about its existence.
Yeah, it's the fact that it exists. So think about, look,
It's just, in other words, it has an ontological nature. A proposition simply is the observation, declaration that an object has its own nature, whether you recognize it or not.
yeah, it's the fact, not necessarily the same, because like there are all sorts of things that you or I
define what a fact is.
Well, I think it's sort of a synonym for proposition, but it seemed like you brought it up, so I thought that you understood it. But there are presumably things that you think that no one has ever thought, that there's not anybody like walking around thinking about them, that are either true or false, right? Like there's a fact, there's a truth about what's 5 feet under the ground in Zimbabwe in some specific location there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a fact about that. Even if no one thinks about that, that's still going to be a fact, right?
So in actuality, let's just say, facts imply to me a statement, but so actuality does not necessitate a statement, it just necessitates existence.
You might want to clarify that a fact is a true proposition.
Yeah, because that's what I understand.
So
it to make a
in
fact
your
about
own
something
hypothetical, Matt, this is your own hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
I assume that in your own hypothetical, it's a fact that this carbon sphere exists, right?
In that, well, I would say in my hypothetical that externally speaking about it from our perspective about this world is that this carbon sphere exists. And whether a mind is there inside that world to know it or not is irrelevant. Its existence is independent of knowledge.
Is it a fact that it exists independent of knowledge?
I wouldn't say fact in the sense.
What would you say then?
I would just say we can't. I think our language is limited at this point. I would just say it's a fact that it exists, and we kind of go in circles at this point.
That's it. Then you got it. You would say that it's a fact that internal of your hypothetical world that the carbon sphere exists. You've got it.
So then,
it is a fact.
Proposition itself is a statement.
It's what's expressed by a statement.
The proposition is what's expressed. So the proposition is the actuality. That's expressed by observation, a statement. The actuality, the ontological essence of something, whatever it is, carbon sphere, it exists. And now, so what you're saying is that proposition is simply the fact of its existence. And then you're making statements about it, and you're calling it a proposition, which I think is problematic because it seems to say that, even in language, we can't perfectly understand the ontos of anything. I think we can only use descriptors and property descriptions and things like that. So I'm really trying to understand this issue of propositions as it relates to truth values and actuality. And I seem to get the idea that you guys think that propositions have their own eternal existence. But then what I'm hearing is that propositions are objects, material objects like a carbon sphere. So let me ask you the question. Can you have actualities that are not material and also not thought?
Yeah, they're not material, but they're also not mental.
Right. And they're eternal in the sense that they're atemporal.
They're atemporal. What does that mean?
Property.
It means they're outside of time.
Not bound by time.
Yeah, that's to me that's a meaningless statement because we don't know what that is to be able to say that that's what it is. To me it's a statement of ignorance. I tell Christians don't say God's outside of time because we don't know what that is. It's just not a good statement. What does that mean? Let's not argue from it then. What does it mean to be outside of time in a perspective we cannot comprehend or describe?
So, Reverend Slick, how do you refer to the timelessness of God when pressed on it?
Of what?
The timelessness of God. God is meant not to be subject to our concept of time. Yes? Is that a correct
First
statement?
of all, I want to say thank you for calling me Reverend Slick. I appreciate that. I don't require that of anybody, but I don't get called that very often. But I just appreciate that subtle, I believe, honest respect. I appreciate that. Thank you. I do.
Oh, you're
I don't
welcome.
require that title. I just doofus is better. But anyway.
Hey,
So
do you
was your
mind
question
if, do you mind if I want to hear what Jack has to say in response to what you said about saying outside of time.
Did you mean Johnny Walker?
I thought that it was the Orthodox view on Calvinism that God was outside of time.
Well, yeah, it's generally what I think we Reformed Calvinists say when you see outside of time is that he's not limited by the constraints of whatever time is, since we assume, created it by the existence of matter and things like this, and all aspects of time are past, present, and future simultaneous to him. But we don't even know if that's an accurate description, but it seems to be propositionally true.
So, Matt, does that mean he exists outside the fifth dimension or outside infinity dimensions?
Jesus. Well, we would say, I would say I'm just going to plead ignorance and yet try and answer at the same time. I would say that the Lord Jesus is inside of our time reference, and he still is material and still is a man, and he will forever be that. And yet God existed before the creation of the universe, and if we were to say time is part of the aspect of what the universe is, then he was before time was in that sense. But what does that mean? We don't know.
Yeah, how can you say before time was? That kind of makes a strange statement based on time, a perception to say before. Right,
it is. It's difficult. This is where I think just it's our concepts and our language just fail us because of our natural limitations.
Like trying to understand a tesseract.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, fourth dimensional cube. Yeah, I saw one once, but I got a headache afterwards.
Well, you look at it when it's on its axis. You look at it and the
What is going on?
Shut up. Hey, you know what, guys?
No
you know
one
what a
cares.
fourth dimensional tesseract looks like in 2 dimensions? A cross.
So what was Johnny Walker's?
That's not true.
Sounds like it looks like a headache to me.
No, it looks like a
Anyway,
hexagon.
I thought it looked like a cross when I saw from years ago, and hey, it looks like a cross. Whatever. We're on way off tangent. Okay, so the idea then is that the laws of logic, transcendental laws of logic, are propositions and they're not statements. Is that the idea that you guys wanting to get to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the laws of logic have their own essence because they exist.
Yes.
And they exist eternally?
Yes.
So these laws exist eternally?
Yes, that's right.
And how do you know they exist eternally?
Therefore, God exists. Bam!
How do you know that they exist eternally?
Amen, brother.
Well, I mean, that's just what is meant by a law of logic.
So wait a minute. So you're saying you define a law of logic as a proposition without origin that's eternal, that is also a law.
I mean, if it was not true at all times and all places, right, it wouldn't be a law.
Truth requires minds. Truth requires minds.
Well,
I thought we established that's not the case.
And even if we didn't, that's not consistent with your view.
Stop interrupting while JJ and Pogan are talking.
I'm sorry.
Or no minds, right? That was to suggest that you could have truth without minds.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that. I said I'm trying to understand your guys' perspective on propositions, and I posited a universe where the only thing existing is a sphere. There would be no universe; it'd just be a sphere.
Yeah. And, so if there were a
there are no minds, there are no propositions. There's nothing. There's no truths. It's just we have to move outside, inside the world for propositional assertions.
Well, the idea is that it's a fact, right?
It exists. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fact that there's at that world, it would be a fact that there was a carbon sphere.
Okay.
So that means when we say that it would be a fact at that world, what we mean by saying it's a fact is that the proposition there is a carbon sphere is true at that world.
Yeah.
So that can be true whether or not there's a mind.
Yeah. Except that the word truth is what throws me. I think playing a little fancy free with that term at this point. Because as you know, there's a correspondence theory of truth, which is what I mainly hold to. There's propositional truth statements, which I think are rather circular and assumptive. So then we could get into what's the nature of truth. And then what we're going to end up with is no one's really going to know anything.
I don't agree with that.
I do,
So
because
you need to have somebody's mind present somewhere in order for a truth, for a proposition to be, you know,
true.
present.
Hey everyone, do you mind? I'm like.
Hold on,
there
I
are
asked a
two-
question, Sensei.
There were two
Everybody-
people who were
everybody-
having a discussion who I was really interested in.
Thanks, can we just, we'll just keep Matt and Jack and Josh on this. We don't want to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, let's just all scream. All right, 3, 2, 1.
You scream like a Skeksis.
That was a lame scream, man.
Okay.
I probably scream at the top of my lungs on this server at least twice a day.
So Matt, you think that truth requires a mind, correct?
And we have to define what truth is first before we can say
So there we
yes
go.
or no.
Let JJ have the room.
Well, that's what I thought I heard you say, Matt. That
If truth is a
without
statement,
minds, there's
then
no
yes.
truth.
Yes, if truth is a statement, then yes.
I don't know what that means. If truth is
Well,
What the
okay,
fuck?
so
JJ, why don't
give an
you-
example of something.
We're doing
I'm
really
in my
JJ,
office.
just let two.
Is
Just
why
let
is everybody
Josh-
talking? Why is everybody talking?
Why is JJ talking?
I agree.
Okay, so let me give an example. So I'm in my office, I'm near my bookcase, and I'm facing some of the books. Okay, now, I am thinking of something. Is there a true statement that you can agree with or not?
Jack, that was to you.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't to JJ.
That you're near your bookcase.
Let's
It's
for a
true
minute
before
there.
you say it.
No, there was something I was
Okay, wait,
considering or looking at.
What'd you say?
But now about that thing, if I don't make a statement about the thing, you can't know a true statement about the thing, the object. So it's like this. I say to people, I say, look, I'm thinking of a concept. Is it true or false?
Right, but that would just say that we don't have justification for the truth of the object.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, do not use the Lord's name in
Why?
vain. Come on, man. Come on.
He's really frustrated.
Can we
Well,
just
it's okay, but I just
can we
consider that to be a
just have-
blasphemy. And if I'm going to be in a room where that continues, I need to leave because I don't want to contribute to anybody blaspheming. And I would just say,
Would you all please watch your language? Just watch your language and let this.
Quiet, please.
Just watch your
You're just
language.
complaining, Joe.
Just watch your language and let the conversation continue.
So
Please let
F-bombs,
Jack,
so Matt,
Josh, and Vic, and only Jack, Josh, and Vic, not
Just shut it. So Matt, I seem to hear you say that truth required a mind, correct?
the way I understand truth is a conceptualization about something. Well, there are different theories of what truth is. This is the problem with it's a problem with philosophy in that there's iterations and variations of different phrases of meanings of words. And then we can argue about phrases and meanings. And when I say to you guys, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not trying to be difficult, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? It's because I've had enough experience with people who study philosophy to know that we had to be very, 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 very specific. And that's just down in one particular area. Then we get 3, 4, 5 of these particular areas. You know, it might work for Bob, but might not work for the other philosopher, atheist guy named Frank. Because there's differentiations. It doesn't seem to be in a uniform ideology or definitional truth about what a proposition is, a truth statement is, actuality, existence, things like this. And so this is why I always have to, whenever I talk to atheists, what exactly do they mean by that? And it's not something I do just to be annoying. I'm honestly trying to understand them.
You're correct, Matt.
Well, I'm still not an atheist, but that's irrelevant.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So, a Christian philosopher once said, I don't know if you guys think of this. The only way to know something is true is if an omniscient mind reveals it to you. What do you think of that?
Say that again.
What's the name of the philosopher?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Say it again.
That the only way to know if something is absolutely true is if an omniscient mind reveals it to you.
I'd like to make a comment on that.
I don't agree with that.
I would like to make that. I would like
that's
to make
just dumb because that doesn't show us how that
Okay,
omniscient
thank you,
being
Henry.
we don't know. Hold.
Back in the doghouse.
I just want to say that I think that while that statement, I don't know whether or not that statement's true. I think in most cases involving the vast majority of humanity, absolute certainty is neither required nor in many cases is it helpful.
I mean, what about things that are true just because they're believed, right? Like,
well,
how could
because someone believes it doesn't mean it's true, and absolute certainty wasn't the issue.
I'm talking about a specific subset of beliefs, right? Beliefs that are true,
incorrigible,
simply because they're held, right? Like, it wouldn't make sense for anybody to say that it was revealed to you, like that you like. Let's say that you like chocolate ice cream, for example, right? Now that's true simply because you believe it, right? There's not anything more to the proposition you liking ice cream. There's no more truth makers to that than you simply liking ice cream, right? Than you having that belief. Now, if that's the case, what sense does it make to say that someone revealed that to you? Like, I, for instance, couldn't reveal to you what you like, right? I couldn't give that belief to you in any substantive way. Neither could anybody else. It's just that you have that belief that makes it true.
So you're talking about a subjective experience and a description of a subjective experience. So thank you for that, because I'll need to modify my statement to be more clear. Let's just say then absolute truth in regard to things outside of us, things that are objective. Say, I don't know. What would be an example of something like that? I don't know.
There's a tree outside.
Laws of nature.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to just talk about this with some people I know who like to talk about this, because this is good. This is good. What's that?
I think on your view, there's nothing of that type, because there's no things that are true independent of other.
Oh yeah.
Right.
For example, we would.
Hold on a sec. You cut me off, right?
Sorry.
I said there are no things that are true independent of what's believed, and that's because what you said you thought truth was. What statements were, the things that bear truth, what propositions are, those are mental. So if they're mental, then there's nothing that's true independent of being believed.
I wouldn't agree. Belief just because someone believes something doesn't mean it's true. I'm thinking of the statement made by Jesus in John 14:6. I'm the way, the truth, the life, and nobody comes to the Father but by me. So that's a statement. Is it a true statement? You know, and if you're atheist, you'll say, well, it's not true because there is no Father, there is no Jesus, or whatever you might say, whichever variations you have, and you would deny that statement as having any truth value.
Matt, I think what Josh was saying was earlier in the conversation, you had said that there can't be truth without minds.
Yeah, and how I've said before, if we define truth as a statement that comports with actuality and or logic, which I did say and clarified earlier, then that would be true. There could be no truth without minds.
That's all I was saying.
So the statement that Jesus made, you know, he's the way, the truth, the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by him. You know, so is it a proposition or is it a statement? If I'm understanding your idea of proposition, if we were to talk about this, that'd be really interesting to do. I've never even had this thought before. What if we were to take a statement like that and apply your guys' thinking to it? That would be really interesting. Huh. Proposition. Could the statement that no one comes to the Father but by me be a proposition?
Well, it refers to a proposition.
What's that?
It refers to the proposition.
I'm sorry. So two people spoke again.
No, I was asking what Johnny Walker was saying.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
I said it refers to the proposition.
Refers to the proposition. The proposition has existence. So then if, that's really interesting. So if the proposition has existence and Jesus says you can't go to God the Father except through him, John 14:6, then if it's a statement, it refers to an actuality of some sort. But that would be that's interesting, because isn't the statement itself a truth proposition, a truth statement? So can you then have, and he's claiming it to be a universal and absolute truth statement, so then could you have a proposition to which it refers? Because if it's true that it exists, then it's true.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to think about the Holy Spirit's regeneration in the same sense if it is stated that the Holy Spirit regenerates and the act of the Holy Spirit regenerating in like a propositional content.
Right, and that's an experience and an actual occurrence in time, which I've experienced. And so, but the statement, no one comes to the Father but by me. So if I'm understanding you guys correctly, and I'm enjoying this too, I really am, this is great. You guys are stretching me. I like that. Doesn't happen very often. I like this. So then he made a statement, John 14:6, but the statement would have to refer to a proposition, and if I get this wrong again, just correct me. The proposition is an actuality, but the actuality would have to mean then that God the Father exists and Jesus exists in that special relationship. So doesn't it come then back to the issue of if you guys were to, and I'm not trying to trap you or anything, if you were to deny that as a truth statement, you are then denying the actuality of the proposition, which means because of your atheism, you could not then affirm any propositional actuality there, and therefore the truth statement that reflects it could not be true. So then wouldn't that be a presumptive assumption and denial without evidence, without fact? And actually an issue of faith at that point.
I would say yes.
What?
I don't know.
This is why I like getting down to the nitty gritty of the meanings of concepts and things like that, because then I can do this with them.
I didn't understand what it meant.
Very well done, Matt. That was
refer to a proposition. What did that mean?
I'm sorry?
What did it mean to say that a statement refers?
He just means expressed.
Oh.
Express, yeah. Thank you for correcting me. Hey, correct my terminology, correct my usage. I have no problem with that. I don't consider that to be rude.
So,
I'm grateful for that. So
you're saying that on atheism, statements can't express propositions?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would think atheists could express propositions, but I keep thinking what a proposition is. And I'm thinking that what you guys mean by it, or the philosophical definition of proposition, is a simple fact of existence without a statement about it. It just is. It's just actuality. And so, if that's what is that correct?
Well, the propositions, like there might be things that are false, but the proposition would still exist in some sense, right? It would just be false at that world. But
I don't understand how that could work.
Well, you understand what
proposition is a true or false statement has to have value that relates or comports to something else. But if actuality is something, a mere carbon sphere is not a statement. It's not true. It's not false. It's just a carbon sphere. So I'm confused.
I'm saying that in that world, whatever, the proposition is going to be. What do you need, baby?
I can turn you up. Hold on a sec, man. Just keep talking. I can turn you up. I can hardly hear you.
So all I was saying was that at that world, the proposition is still going to be true, right? Like it does. I mean, it doesn't make sense for there to be no.
The proposition that there exists a carbon sphere is going to be true.
Right.
I think Matt was gonna. The proposition's not true or false.
So there neither is nor there isn't a carbon sphere?
I'm sorry, you broke up. What?
So you're saying that there neither is nor there isn't a carbon sphere?
No, if I'm understanding you guys, and maybe I'm not, that the idea of a proposition is not a statement, because a statement reflects a proposition.
Yeah, so the statement is the syntax.
What?
The statement is just the syntax.
The syntax of a proposition, the expressed syntax of a proposition.
So like if I write down some,
you're roboting.
So if it's true that propositions exist in some sort of way, so we know that true propositions exist in some sort of third option way. Is it also true that false propositions also exist in this third option way, which would then entail like an infinite amount of propositions, surely?
I don't know, because I don't think I understand the definition of proposition sufficiently so far.
Yeah.
So, example, the proposition there is not the carbon sphere does not exist would be false, but it would still be a proposition. And then we could say a bird exists. Would
No,
also be
you're
false.
saying it's true that not be.
Yeah, you're making a statement about a proposition, but from what I'm gathering from what you guys are saying, propositions themselves aren't true or false. They just are actualities of some sort.
No, I don't think
propositions are the kind of things that could be true or false.
How could? Okay, then I don't understand. That just throws a monkey wrench in everything.
So when we say that there's a fact, that means that a given proposition is true at that world. So at the world with the carbon sphere, right, it's a fact that there's a carbon sphere. That means that at that world, the proposition there is a carbon sphere is true at that world. But in another world where there was no carbon sphere, we would say that proposition is false at that world.
Correct. But that's, to me, is just making statements and conflating, from what I understand.
No. There's a distinction between what the statement is and what the statement expresses.
What I was going to say was, I think it's conflation, because what I've understood about how you're defining a proposition is that it's an actuality. Just simply an actuality.
We're saying that what a fact is a true proposition.
Okay.
But so there can't be a false fact, right?
If I can't finish my sentences, I'm not going to have a conversation.
Rick, Matt, there's like some lag between, so that might be the issue. Sorry for the lag.
Yeah,
everybody's lagging. Over talking.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to do is repeat what you're saying and understand it, and then what's happening on my end, I'm constantly being interrupted. I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose, but maybe there's just a lag issue. Oh, well, I forgot what we were saying. So
I was saying that a fact, there can't be a false fact, right? A fact means that it's true. So what we're saying a fact is a true proposition. So when a proposition is false, it's not a fact. So the carbon sphere, in a world where there's no carbon sphere, the proposition there is a carbon sphere would be false. But in your example, that proposition is true, right? Because it's a fact.
You seem to be saying that a proposition is a statement at that point.
No,
I'm saying that if we were to say there is a proposition, there is a carbon sphere, if we were to say that, right, what we'd be expressing is the proposition.
What is the proposition?
There is a carbon sphere.
So wait,
right?
So you're telling me if we were to say there's a carbon sphere, what we're saying is we're expressing the idea that there is a carbon sphere.
Yeah, because the point is that I don't have to say it in English.
Well, wait,
right?
let me make
the problem with that
clear, right?
Well, I see why there's a problem on its face, right? But that's just the problem, that we can't talk about propositions outside of language, right? But we can hone in on the issue by thinking about what if we translated the sentence into French, right? So if I said il est une sphère carbone or something like that, right? And you ask me, what does that mean, right? I would say it means there is a carbon sphere, right? That's the proposition that's expressed by that sentence in French. It's the same. You can express the same proposition in many languages, right?
Yeah, but a proposition in many languages is simply a cognition that's just related with verbs, nouns, syntax, and things like that. And so that's no big deal. But the issue is it's reflecting something. It's reflecting an actuality. What is the thing? I want a definition of what proposition is. I thought I was on the right track, but now from what you're saying, I'm getting a little more confused. Because earlier you said, and I tried to repeat it, that a carbon sphere exists as a proposition that a carbon sphere exists, which to me is just completely useless. It doesn't help me at all to understand what the nature and the essence, the ontos is of a proposition. Now, would you say, let me ask you this, would you say a proposition about one object in a relationship with a proposition with a different object, the properties of the propositions are different, or the properties of the propositions the same?
Well, two different propositions will have two different properties.
Then what that would tell me then is that the propositions are actuality, or in actuality, are statements. If propositional theory you're talking about is just simply something that has an essence of existence,
Matt,
then what you're talking about is object A, object B, is that they're different objects.
Matt, I
and
can
they're different properties. And so therefore what you're saying, I'm thinking of understanding what you're saying is that the essence of existence itself is the thing that a proposition is relating to, and a statement describes the proposition.
Now, look, I can express two different propositions with the same statement, and I can express the same proposition with two different statements. The propositions aren't statements.
Yeah, I think this is, to me, this is becoming meaningless. And I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I don't see any way to define what a proposition actually is. I don't know if you guys know that really what it is, because I'm getting different answers from different people. I'm getting confused.
I don't think anybody can give you a different answer. What are you talking about?
So let me see if I can explain. So, like,
sure.
Look, if you're not in possession of the concept, and the concept is sort of irreducible, then it's not like that there's anything that anybody could do to help you. Like, you understand that, like.
I don't agree with that. I don't know what.
Well, I think maybe what we can do is talk about the role that play, right? Why is it that we posit them? We talk about what role they play in our conceptual architecture, right? So they play a role in how we understand.
Well, you can do that. So do that then. I don't know.
Yeah, Josh, there's a confusion in what you're saying.
All right, let's get this back on topic.
So
I don't agree with people imitating somebody else and then saying something horrible about their family members.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's appropriate. Why do that?
That's why they were muted.
That person should be banned. Yeah, they're muted. So, Jack, I believe.
Yeah, that person should be stoned and killed.
It should have been moderated before they had a chance to.
Yeah, it's hard because my daughter's using against me constantly, and it's it gets old. It's like it's unnecessary.
It is unnecessary. So I think either Jack.
We continue the conversation. Yeah, let's continue the conversation.
Yeah, it's not like Matt Slick, right?
All right, I don't know what you're gonna say, but Jack or Matt, please talk.
Wait, no. Why did you?
Nominalism was about to bring an objection or an explanation.
The role
of propositions.
Wait, who muted that one guy?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, right. Well, it was more to Josh, but it's not like he doesn't understand what a proposition is, right? Like when he says things like, "I don't understand what that means," right? That's a proposition, right? That's why I think Vic is saying it's a confusion, right? Because the point is, you can presumably show them, right, that they already possess the concept, even if you can't like give some reductive analysis of what proposition is.
Look, there are no concepts that are logically private, Josh. So I don't know what you're even trying to say.
Well, I mean, like, look, I was just taking it to be a semantic primitive, but you don't. So you don't believe in semantic primitives, then?
No, I don't know what any of that means.
So, do you think that you could explain? Okay, never mind. I don't really.
If you're talking about qualia, right? Qualia don't have content, so. There aren't.
Okay. Fine. You deny the analytic synthetic distinction. Go suck a dick. I don't care.
That's not really. I mean, like, in fact, you can argue for analyticity by the same method, right? The point is, you can show them that they have these concepts, right? When he says stuff like, "I don't understand that," that's a proposition. So, unless he just didn't understand what he just said, right? He understands what propositions are.
He's saying he thinks that they're statements, right? He's saying he thinks that they're statements, and he's saying if they're not statements, he doesn't know what they are. So he thinks what he said is a statement.
Well, but what does he mean by a statement, right? I mean, if he's just saying that propositions are like sentences or something, we can go into that view, I guess. But I mean, if he has some argument, right, that in order for X to be a proposition, it has to be a statement. We can hear that.
But I think that's just a confusion, right? Because the same sentence, the same statement.
Well, there's an argument against it. I'm not. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying, right, if he has some argument for that view, or some objection to the argument you guys were giving, right, that the same proposition can be expressed by two different statements and vice versa, right? Then, right, I mean, we can just hear what his response is.
Right.
What
so
happened?
why
Did
don't
he leave?
No,
he's
he's still
still
here.
here,
And that's
but
like,
they
what's
started
the
talking
response?
amongst each other. Why don't you guys reframe the issue that you've identified to Matt?
Right. Okay. So, should I do it or should Philip do it?
I have to practice my trombone, so.
So
whoever takes the lead.
What the?
Yeah, so the point is,
That
like,
was actually a euphemism.
like, look, what we're Matt Slick, are you there?
Yeah.
So look, what we're calling the proposition here is the thing shared by the statement "water is blue" and "agua es azul," right? So the thing that those two statements share is the proposition, namely the meaning, right? That's shared by both statements. That's the proposition.
Okay, can we back up a little? Because you said a proposition. How do you word it? Is the thing shared?
Right.
What was that?
It's the thing shared by both of those statements.
Okay, define what that thing is.
It's something that could be true or false. It's something that you could have a propositional attitude towards. That is, you could take it to be true. You could desire it to be true. Right? You could fear that it's true. You can hope that it's true. You can hope that it's false. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what you really want, right? It's the content.
No, it's helping.
Right? So it's like something that's the content of your belief. It could be the content of your desire.
Does it always have a subject?
What does that mean?
As in, like, an object in the real world?
No, propositions can be about things that don't exist.
Yeah, they could be false. Like unicorns are blue.
Yeah, please say Sherlock Holmes.
Or how about flying spaghetti monsters? Let's
Yeah.
on that one.
Or like
Sherlock
propositions
Holmes.
about.
Yeah, Sherlock
gonna
Holmes lives at 2221B Baker Street, right?
Or like God created the universe.
Let's.
Don't the truth values of proposition matter more?
What?
Point is that the
doesn't matter.
proposition is what bears truth, right? It's what can be either true or false.
Propositions bear truth. See, what does that mean?
See,
Truth.
Matt, I think what they mean is
Well,
that
Matt-
statements are propositions of truth, right?
Yeah.
So they may or may
typically-
not be factually true.
Typically,
And
there's
when
a
a statement is
distinction in
made,
philosophy
the
between a truth bearer
proposition
and a truth
underlying it is
maker.
that it's true.
Truth bearer and a truth maker. So
I tell you what. How
So-
about this, guys? How about if I study it on my own?
well, go ahead.
Yeah.
because
Johnny, can I ask
I-
a question? Because this is driving me nuts too, because this is something that I
ahead,
don't
Vicky.
understand. So just so I can get an understanding, this whole idea of proposition,
Jesus loves it.
if I was to explain it myself, I'm talking about a sandwich. The sandwich itself and whatever that I am speaking of is a proposition. Me talking about
No,
said
no.
sandwich. One sec. So me talking about the sandwich is the statement I make about whatever it is I'm speaking of. Right? So No?
If I say to
Okay.
you, if I say to you, it's raining outside in
Mhm.
English, right?
Mhm.
And
or in
somebody
every
else,
other language.
yeah, if somebody says "il pleut" in French or "es
Mhm.
regnet" in German, right? There's
Mhm.
something that all three speakers who speak different languages are expressing that's the same.
Okay, they're speaking about the rain, right?
Well, what it is that they're expressing, right, is this, let's call it an abstract object, a proposition, right?
What is the proposition in that case? The rain that they're speaking of?
If I say it's raining outside, that's a that expresses a proposition.
Right.
And that proposition
whether you express it or not, it is constant. Right?
Yeah, the
So
idea is that
right.
even if I'm not thinking of it,
It's going to be there. Right.
that proposition is going to be true at that world, right? Even if there were no people,
So,
right?
so,
if
so
it
I'm
was
assuming,
raining.
So my statement about the sandwich is why was it wrong? It was literally
Well, I
the
was
same
saying
thing.
that the sandwich itself is not a proposition.
No, right. The sandwich itself is not a proposition. I would have to make.
But if we say, right, there is a sandwich in my kitchen, right? That sentence is expressing a proposition about that sandwich, right? So if we could say that the fact that there is, right, a sandwich in your kitchen, that fact, right, is a true proposition. That's what it means for it to be a fact.
Yeah,
That
the
it's a
fact
And to clarify, I do not need.
that world.
And one thing that I noticed, and one thing that I also wanted to clarify, you guys spoke about the mind and Matt mentioned about having to have a mind in order for it to be true. Well, you don't need to be in a place for something to be true.
We're not saying that a mind is
No,
required.
he mentioned this.
No, Matt.
So I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, we're not saying.
So that's why, right. That's why I wanted to clarify it to him that I don't believe that that's the case, because we don't need to be in a place for something to be true. Like if none of us were on Earth, gravity would still be a thing, right? So I don't know if anything that I've said helps Matt in any way.
We're like the proposition 2 + 2 = 4, right? We all know, but that would be independent. But that's true, independent of human mind. So that's another
Proposition doesn't necessarily have to be true.
Well, this is the first time I've heard about propositions myself. This whole thing is new to me, so this is the first time. So I was trying to learn it just as Matt was.
That's not even in contention.
This is so fucking cute, homie.
It's so ridiculous. It's like you guys are doing this on purpose.
Okay.
This is why you guys need the Bible. You have no problems there.
No,
Y'all motherfuckers need Jesus.
Bring up irrelevant shit.
So Matt's like, you're free to speak. I can mute anyone who interrupts. Or not.
Chaseless, have you gotten your mod powers in Darth Dawkins' server yet?
Listen, homie, you better not fucking mute anybody.
But thank you for that explanation, Johnny. I appreciate it. I don't know if that helped you in any way, Matt. But...
Not really.
Not at all. You just confuse everything.
I mean, I don't mean disrespectful, but I'm finding it to become a little bit more confusing. I'm trying to understand in my mind the ontological essence of a proposition as it relates to and is separated from a statement about it that codifies it or makes.
Well, here's another way to think about it. So let's talk, instead of talking about sentences, let's talk about mental states, right? Like beliefs and desires, right? So what philosophers, or let's say analytic philosophers, standardly say, right, is that what beliefs and desires are a type of mental state called intentional states. That means that they're mental states that have the property of intentionality, right? Which means aboutness, right? And the idea is that beliefs and desires have a content, right? They're about something, right? And what that content is a proposition. So the idea would be that if I believe that it is raining outside, right, the content of my belief is the proposition it is raining outside. And what a belief is what's called a propositional attitude, right? So intentional states are propositional attitudes, that means that they're attitudes towards a proposition, right? So beliefs specifically are the attitude of holding true a given proposition. So if I believe that it's raining outside, I have the attitude of holding that proposition to be true. I hold it to be true that it's raining outside, right? Similarly with desires. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this is helping. It's seriously. I wish that could be just written down. What you just said, because it was really clear.
Well, that would be in any standard article on intentionality. Like if you went to Stanford
I read this before.
Encyclopedia of Philosophy and looked up intentionality. I'm sure it says basically what I just said.
Yeah, I've read about intentionality before and stuff like that. But I had questions even with that because the books you can't answer, you know.
Okay,
and
no problem.
Someone says I'm being purposely difficult. No, I'm not.
No, I don't think you're being purposely difficult.
I just learn differently than most. That's all. I have
that's fine.
a little autistic issues.
I think you've been very humble and a very good interlocutor, and I'm sure that the other person. I'm sure that everyone would agree.
I think there's another thing we should explain to Maslick, and that's the sense-referent distinction.
Well, there's a lot on the table here, so.
Well, I think if we just throw more out on it, it'll get cleared up.
I'll tell you what. The guy who I said, "Hey, well done," wish that was in written form. Could you or could somebody?
Yeah,
what you're talking about, steer me towards an article that kind of goes through that.
There's an article called Intentionality in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is an online encyclopedia. So you just go Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
I just posted a link to it.
Oh, okay. Plato.stanford.edu.
That's the main page link, and then you can search different terms on there.
Okay.